Welcome to the Darkstream, Vox Day, voxday.net, and of course, unauthorized.tv. Thanks for tuning in or switching over from the other two live streams that are currently being broadcast on unauthorized.tv. I was talking to Owen today, and he was mentioning that some people were running around trying to spread the rumor that I've lost interest in unauthorized. I'm just going to abandon Owen and everybody else, leave them holding the bag. I'm totally focused on Castalia now, and that's all I care about. And the fact of the matter is, let's face it, Castalia is all I've cared about for a long time. I never, ever really cared about a lot of all the other stuff, But that doesn't mean that I'm going to stop doing it. That doesn't mean that I'm going to abandon my commitments and abandon anybody else, And the thing that is kind of remarkable is, what are people complaining about? They're complaining, and of course, no one's actually complaining. It's just the people that are looking for something to criticize. They're criticizing the fact that we are literally giving this to everybody for free for a month or two while we get all of our ducks in a row. Think about this. We not only have this successful, multi-source streaming setup running on both sides of the Atlantic, but it's capable of supporting 3 of the more popular streamers we have, all going at the same time, without causing any trouble, without causing any problem. Is it a little slower than it should be? Sure, because right now it's only running off of one of the 2 servers. Once we get all of the foundational and infrastructure aspects together, at that point then we can start working on the efficiencies. But one thing at a time. First things first. Cambridge Medieval History arrived yesterday. Very beautiful. Speaking of Castalia, glad you liked it. It is indeed. You can see them on my shelf up there behind me. And if you look closely, on one side of that same shelf, you can see a certain logo on a certain very big book. And as with the Rogue Roman, my copy of the Landmark Thucydides showed up. It is beautiful. I'm a little less content with that one than I am with the medieval history, just because I think that we should have done a little bit more tweaking of the publisher's interior. We didn't have the ability to actually adjust the text itself, but we could have done something with the margins. And frankly, I think we should have. I think we should have moved them in a bit. They already have monster outside margins for the notes, but because the gilding process removes a little bit from the edges, and so when we do a second edition of Thucydides, which we will, then we're probably going to make some adjustments to the layout. Plus, we'll fix that one page where the page number got cut off. It's a bit ironic that with all of the original layouts we've done, and with the scanned reproductions that we've done, the first time that we actually have a interior print issue, which thank goodness was a very minor one, the first time we have an issue, it's from a mainstream publisher. I mean, that's a Simon and Schuster book. And so it's a little bit ironic that, our first mistake of this type is actually based on, something we got directly from a major publisher. So now we know to be a bit more careful with those. Although honestly, because it wasn't an error that showed up in the computer review, the chances that we were going to catch it were very, very slim. So, I mean, obviously they didn't catch it. So, Roman says, I have a facsimile Dune from Easton Press, and the quality of the text is far less than Castalia. Well, that's not the only thing that's going to be far less than Castalia. People have been wondering what I do and what I've been so busy doing. User, it's you, so just stop it, okay? Your connection combined with the fact that you're probably on the wrong side of the Atlantic is doing that. So if you're going to just talk about your own experience, just keep it to yourself. The chat does not need to know. Anyhow, so what we've been doing is looking at ways to significantly increase the quality of the books while keeping the price the same. Now, if you've noticed, there's a lot of inflation out there. A lot of people are increasing their prices. And if you notice, we haven't. We're not going to. The only thing that we will likely do at some point in the future is for people in locations that are very expensive to ship to, we will eventually ask you to take over responsibility for that part of the price. But we're working on a number of plans that are going to improve the quality of literally every aspect of what we're doing, with the exception of the book block gilding, which will remain the same, because basically no matter who we use or how we do it, or even if we buy the machines ourselves, they're all going to be from the same company in Switzerland. So, everybody does it the same way. But what's interesting is we're working very closely. In fact, I spent 25 minutes today on the phone with the woman who used to supply the leather to Franklin Library. And they originally supplied Easton Press with it before Easton Press switched to the leather that they're using now, which we've also been using because, of course, when we started, we just thought we should do what the industry leader did. But now we've learned more, and we have a much better idea of what we're doing, and we are almost certainly going to be gradually upping the quality of what we're doing with regards to the leather, the stamping. We've already effectively addressed the shipping. We're also going to be improving our, I think I said our foil stamping. That's a big one. And we're also planning on changing the hubbing system so that it's more akin to the Franklin hub rather than the Easton hub. And here's what's the craziest thing is we have just, tomorrow in fact, I'm going to the bindery and we're going to be reviewing the first expansion of it. The reason that we need to expand it is because we have just acquired 4 additional machines, which could theoretically boost our level of production by about a factor of 30. We don't need that yet, but we do want, there's some specific machines that we wanted. And when I say specific, I mean literally this specific machine from this manufacturer, this particular model from this particular decade. And we literally had to scour everywhere from India to Lithuania to find these things, and Texas of all places. But anyhow, with both unauthorized and with Castalia, we are gearing up for what we believe is going to be a very, very difficult time for a lot of companies. We happen to know a number of things about a number of companies kind of in our general area, and we strongly suspect that we're going to be doing a lot better than most in the near future. Why? You know why. We don't do debt. There's a reason, of course, why unauthorized can run for free. There's a reason why we can arrange to gear up for when other companies stop production. I'm not saying that Easton is going to stop producing books tomorrow. I'm not saying that Folio Society is going to stop producing books tomorrow. But what we do know is one of the binderies that used to supply leather and quarter leather books to Folio went under in 2017. 2 Acre North Dakota Bear says, I shipped 1 bottle of hot sauce in a padded envelope from North Dakota to Calgary, $26. It's crazy. That's insane. I mean, how can anyone run a business that depends upon shipping things to Canada? It's nuts. But we even have a plan for those situations too. We are looking at we already have it set up so that we can arrange to produce books and ship them in the States and in Europe. And we also have some plans that we are working on with regards to Asia. And so now that we know what we're doing, and now that we know that we can actually have a reasonable expectation of being able to do it better than everyone else, I think things are going to be very, very interesting and very, very positive in the next 18 months. I think within 2.5 years, all of us are going to be looking at where we are going, wow, how on earth did we get here? And I think it's going to be a great ride together. I really do. It's remember, difficult economic times and times of war is when the strongest companies get established. We've seen this over and over and over again. And it's not just because, they sold these things to the military and so forth. It's because when things get difficult, only people that are not living close to the edge do well or can keep doing what they're doing. And so what happens is everybody who's in debt starts failing, and everybody who's not in debt is able to then capture that business. So anyhow, Ursa's complaint. Ursa, just be quiet. The only thing worse than streaming interruptions, which is almost certainly directly, if you want to know the reason, it's the same reason that's been pointed out time and time again before. Right now, you're streaming from Europe. You're probably in the United States. That sometimes, when you're going cross-Atlantic, it sometimes gets slow. That's why you set up multiple servers in multiple locations like we have, that's not what we're working on yet. So, just if you can't watch the stream live like that, then watch the recorded version. Anyhow, but all I can say is that things are going very, very well, and we are addressing everything one step at a time. I mean, remember, it was it was a lot of there was a lot of people that used to complain regularly and correctly about our bad shipping. We had absolutely terrible shipping. But now people are praising our shipping. Right? I mean, Renee just said, I appreciated the Castalia team emailing and inquiring about shipping preferences, class act service. Yeah, I mean, the shipping guys we've got who are handling the stuff now are rock stars. And, if there's any flaw right now, it's that we're not always good about getting books out to the warehouse. We need to come up with a better solution there than having me order that. So, anyhow, yeah. Okay, Ursa, you're going to get kicked off the stream in a second if you don't stop talking about this. Okay? I don't know how Owen deals with, independent complaints about personal internet connectivity, but I'm not a big fan of it. So, anyhow, I don't care what you never have on other live streams, okay? You don't even have to pay for this right now. So just be quiet. Anyhow, so I've got a couple announcements. First of all, people have been asking, and I've been a little bit overdue on this one. The history book for April, May, June is going to be the Cambridge History of Byzantium. And this is our first direct partnership with Cambridge University Press. And we're very excited about it. This is going to be really, it's a big step forward for us to be working with Cambridge University Press. We're determined to do a first-rate job on it. And so if you haven't subscribed to Castalia History yet, this is the time to do so. By the way, I also, speaking of Castalia History, if you're an annual history subscriber and you're among that group that first subscribed when we launched, remember that you need to, your subscription is not going to renew automatically because of we changed systems. So you probably have to, I think there's about, 20 people that need to refresh their, resubscribe. So anyhow, we'll send out an email, etc., etc. But the big news is that it's going to be a 2-volume set. So this is volume 1. Obviously, volume 2 will be the next month. And so anyhow, it's the Cambridge History of Byzantium. It's a big book. I think both volumes are going to be around 600 pages. It's kind of funny. We really need to, we really do need to think about doing some smaller books occasionally. I mean, if you look at the history books that we've done, they're just monsters, which is not the smartest thing to do if you want to keep your shipping costs down. But it's all good. It's all good. So that's the one announcement. And the other announcement I have is that Archaven Comics is going to be releasing Ghost of the Badlands, which is the comic that Razorfist very successfully crowdfunded, and we're very pleased that he selected us to work with, and we're going to be getting that out reasonably soon. I'll leave all the other stuff to Razorfist to announce when the time comes, but the good news is that we are working on it, and we do expect that to come out reasonably soon. The other thing, and the reason that we are working on it, is because we are now done with both Alt Hero Q and with Volume 1 of Midnight's War. I'm just looking up the cover here, and let's see, there we are. So this is now done, ready to go. We're just waiting to ship over the proof to me so I can check it out, make sure it's good to go, and then that is going to be going out first to all the backers. Alt Hero Q is going to go out to all the backers at the same time. So if you back both, you'll be getting both. We're still working on Volume 2. No, there's no ETA yet on the Leather Midnight's War, because we need to finish. Remember, the leather one is going to be the big fat collection of all 3 volumes, and this is only the first volume. So we may, if there's demand, we may make a small leather volume at the bindery for people that want it, but we'll play that one by ear. We can't do the leather version until all 3 volumes are done. So, but we're working on it. It'll be a while. I guarantee it'll be a while, but it will get done, and it will be excellent. So, and once we get these out, then that's when we'll go ahead and do the crowdfund for both the SSH book and for the Hypergamos book. Hypergamos book is already done, ready to go. The SSH book will be done in probably 6 weeks. So, 2 Acre North Dakota Bear says, I'm not particularly well read on the old history. Do you recommend one of yours I could start with? Well, yes and no. I would recommend reading the Cambridge Medieval History, volumes 1 and 2, but we're sold out. And so, jeez. Cod says, somewhere there's a goat walking around not knowing he's going to be a book. There's a lot of goats. To be honest, I just placed an order for all of the goat skins for 8 different books, and I will admit I had a momentary pang of conscience thinking, that's a lot of goats. But what do you do? And the thing is that it's not like that's what the goats were. They're grown for food. So it's not like they were going to live out their lives on the goat farm or anything. Any reading suggestions about Switzerland in World War II? Yeah, there's a book called Target Switzerland. It's really good. I don't remember the name of the author, but I highly recommend it. It's in English, but it's very well researched, and I think you'd enjoy it. Should we start a museum level? Anyhow, the thing that's so exciting about Castalia is that most of the businesses that I have been involved with in the past have been very ephemeral. So you start doing stuff like computer games. You start doing different technical applications. Hey, it's the princess. Somebody's had enough of her nap. She likes to come and sleep on my big chair in the corner, and it's kind of funny because she'll whine, which is my her request that she gets blankets put over her. So, which is why we call her the princess, of course. But anyhow, it's not just a very successful community effort. It's not just creating literal works of art that we expect are going to last for decades, if not centuries. But there's just a real, as Sapien Avenger says, a very tactile and very tangible sense of accomplishment. You don't think, gee, what did I do? What have I accomplished at the office for the last 6 months? You can literally see right behind you. You can pick it up. You can read it. And the thing is that, especially when you're talking about books like the landmark Thucydides, when you're talking about books like the Cambridge History of Byzantium, you're not only getting hours and hours and hours of entertainment, because these are very good books that are very worth reading, but you're also educating yourself. And I think that the Castalia Junior Classics is probably the most satisfying thing that we've done. But really, the history subscription has been much, much more successful and much more satisfying than I'd ever imagined. And I'm really happy that we managed to get the first 3 books out into the subscribers' hands before we hit our 1-year anniversary, which hasn't even arrived yet. So anyhow, that's kind of the update on where we are. And the thing that's important to keep in mind is that internet reality is not reality. When you hear things, when you hear rumors, I mean, today on Social Galactic, somebody was posting that Howard Stern had died. He hadn't. Like one of his producers or one of his assistants or something had died. But somehow, through the game of internet telephone, it in a clickbaity headline, people who just glanced at the headline and didn't bother reading the article and immediately started telling people about it. I mean, it's just absurd. I mean, again, to talk about unauthorized, we're running it right now for free. It's capable of having Owen and Stefan and I all on at the same time, or Razorfist 2. It's not running flawlessly yet. But the point is that it's reached a level of stability and anti-fragility that should be extremely encouraging to everybody. The fact that we've not only completely sold out of all of our history books, but we actually need more space for the bindery is astonishing. This is all very good news, especially because we all know that things are going to get more difficult for everybody. Not every corporation is going to survive. Disney, for example, is probably going to go down at some point, possibly even in the next 5 years. That would have been absolutely unthinkable even 3 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. I think 3 years ago it might have been thinkable, just ludicrous. Now it's in horrific shape. And we've got some great books coming out. I got a phone call from Steve Keen, The Economist. We had a good call. I was talking to somebody from a central bank that was interested in a project. We were, Dark Herald is working on what is going to be the definitive history of the decline and fall of the devil mouse, and these are all things that we're going to publish, and there's a whole bunch of other things that we're not even ready to talk about yet. And so, and all of these things are being done without a dime of debt, without any stupid economic or corporate vulnerabilities. We already know that, there's people at Amazon who don't like us. There's people at this place and that place and whatever. There's people in the media that hate us. So what? We know this, The gammas are going to gamma. The critics are going to critic. The SJWs are going to do whatever they can to try to poison the well and discredit and demonetize and deplatform and all this sort of thing. So what? We've been dealing with this stuff since 2008. And so, it's just a matter of dealing with these things one step at a time. There's no reason to get excited about any of these problems. There's no reason to get worked up and worried about any of these things. It's just take a look, see what the problem is, see what's affected, address it, fix it, move on to the next one. The Rogue Roman said, just bought a second Pride and Prejudice for my sister's birthday in July. She's going to love it. Yeah, she will. She definitely will. LJ Bear says, look forward to be able to fund the printing machines. I mean, I don't want to go there, and I don't think we need to go there, because the printing companies are so desperate for business right now. We actually ended up with a bunch of extra Missionary second edition, which we're working towards. You got to order the leathers first, but we ended up with way more than we intended to order because they were so eager to do it. They went and printed it twice. Without without us asking them to. It's crazy. But because there's so much work that needs, because there's so much work they need to do, I don't think that we're going to need our own printing machines for a while. I will admit, when I was shopping for old machines, I was very tempted to buy this 1957 Heidelberg letterpress machine, just because letterpress is considered to be the very, very highest caliber of printing, and however, it's a bit of a nightmare. So, companies that devote themselves to letterpress, they do like one letterpress book a year, so that's not going to work for us. And it's cost prohibitive. I wouldn't want to charge the prices that we'd have to charge. But I think you're going to see continued improvement in the quality over time, and everybody's happy with the quality that we're at right now, and that's great. But I have no interest in being able to say, well, it's kind of like Easton, but a little bit better. I want it to be head and shoulders better than Franklin. I want our books to be better than the Franklin Oxford series. Have you scoped out the new stamping machine? We already bought one. We already bought an older machine that delivers 5 times more pressure than the machine we already have. The problem with the machine we already have is it only delivers enough pressure to stamp goat skin. It's really designed for metal and paper, and so we're going to sell that one, and we're going to we've already bought this other one. We may buy a second one as well, just for, as with the servers, we like redundancy. And when you're dealing with older machines, it can take a while to get them fixed. Now, fortunately, as it happens, the bindery is located less than an hour away from the company that originally made the machines. Actually, technically, it's the company that bought the company that originally made the machines, but they've got all the old records. And in fact, when the people we bought the machine from didn't know exactly what it was, we managed to call the manufacturer, and they actually had the original sales certificates and everything. So I'm pretty confident that if we have problems, we'll be able to get them fixed. Plus, if we have a level of redundancy, then while one machine is getting fixed, we can use the other one. So so it's a really exciting time. And historically, books have done best in times of economic depression and in times of war, because what else are you going to do? They're not, kind of like with COVID, they're not making the movies. That was also very good for the industry. And so, what we're trying to do is to be proactive. We're trying to be wise about the resources that you guys have provided us with, and to be very, very efficient with them. And so, that silk moire stuff that we use them in the Talib books, and Easton usually uses them. Franklin used to use them. We usually go with the printed end papers, but the moire is nice. And we just made contact with the people that sell that stuff 100 yards at a time. I don't know which, if any, books we're going to use that on, but now we have it. Now we know what to do. So anyhow, don't pay any attention to the internet rumors and that sort of thing. If you have a question, go ahead and bring it up with me on the stream. We have nothing to hide. Quite the opposite. Typically we're trying to keep everybody informed effectively on a regular basis. And so, it's never a good idea to pay any attention to the black pillars, the fear-mongers, the gammas, the critics, the trolls. There's always going to be people saying something negative. There's always going to be people who have predicted the last 563rd failures out of the last 0 that actually happened. Everything doesn't proceed smoothly and on a that business ramp that they always like to have in all of the financial reports. That's not real. That's all fake. It's more like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, another step back, 6 steps forward. That's how it is. That's normal. I promise you, if I am going to opt out of something, I will let you know. I shut Alpha Game down and I let people know. I said, you know what? I don't like doing this anymore because I'm sick and tired of people constantly asking, what about me? What am I? What am I? This is why I think I'm this. And let me bore you with a big wall of text about every girl I've ever dated. What do you think I am? What am I? I'm like, I don't know, and I don't care. I even got a letter to that effect. Not a letter, but an email to that effect today. Someone's like, well, I'm a little confused because, everybody says I'm this, but you seem to think I'm that. But here's why I think, I was just like, A, I don't care. B, I don't know. And C, this sort of thing is exactly why I stopped doing that. Rogue Roman has a decent question here. Has Sigma game been more enjoyable for you than Alpha game was? Yes. I think for 3 reasons. Number one, it's actually helping me get the book finished. It's helping me, get into the right mental context for thinking about the various issues involved. And sometimes, people bring up stuff that I hadn't considered, or they make observations that I'd never noticed, and so that's very useful. Secondly, Alpha game, as its name suggests, was more about the whole concept of intersexual relations. We didn't have the same understanding of the SSH that we do now. And now we have a much broader context to which it can be meaningfully applied and usefully used, and so that's much more interesting. When people are talking, I like the comments when people are talking about how they see the SSH playing out in their workplaces, in different situations. That's interesting to me, because it's people talking about ideas and applications. It's not this narcissistic mirror gazing self-obsession about what label would you put on me? What should I be called? I don't know, and I don't care. And I don't want to hear that question, every single day. And I won't answer it. Now, and then the third reason is that Sigma game, as its name suggests, intrinsically implies a Sigma context to the whole thing. And so it's a little bit more appropriate for me to be able to express my true indifference to things, to readers in general, than it was on Alpha game. Alpha game was not from a Sigma perspective. It was a Sigma was writing it, but it wasn't about that perspective per se. Sigma game intrinsically is, and it plays an important role in allowing people to be set straight on the concept. If you pay attention to things like Sigma grind set and Sigma this and Sigma that on TikTok, and all the Sigma memes with Patrick Bateman or whatever, you get a very incoherent and largely useless perspective on it. It doesn't help you understand anything. I think most of the people at Sigma game are getting a lot out of it that they're able to apply to their own lives in different ways. I mean, yes, there's too much emphasis paid to sigmas and to a lesser extent gammas, but that's just the nature. The one is the nature of who the author is, The other is the nature of we're on the internet and gammas are going to interfere and do their thing like they do. And so, the best way to deal with gamma behavior, in my opinion, is to use it. When someone shows up on Sigma Game and starts doing their gamma thing, it's very useful to point it out. To say, hey, look at this. I mean, it was particularly ironic today. There's a lawyer who's a self-described gamma, and he is correct. But he's very self-aware in a non-delusional way, unlike a lot of gammas. But it was funny how he just went full gamma on how he was relieved to know that the way that even though he uses LOL a lot like a gamma, he wasn't doing it so for the reason that had been described, and so therefore, even though he was doing what gammas do, he wasn't doing it for gamma reasons. Meanwhile, this whole thing is talking about how he feels and explaining how he feels. I mean, it was textbook gamma behavior. I found the whole thing very amusing. And of course, very, very educational if you're not entirely clear on how to spot gamma behavior. Our text said you could always charge $300 to tell people they're gammas. Well, you could, but you could charge a lot more to tell them that they're alphas or sigmas. Renee says, I've figured out my father is a sigma. Any advice on how to connect to sigma fathers? Yes. Find out what their areas of intellectual interest are and talk to them about that. I'm sure if you were to talk to my friends and family, they would tell you, you just have to get the right topic and you'll be the one trying to escape the conversation. But if you're gonna, what most people want when they want to figure out how to talk to sigmas is what they really want to know is, how do I make the sigma sit and listen to me ramble on about the things that the sigma doesn't care about? Yeah, if you have goats, don't let me know. I mean, it's kind of funny how people just don't understand that. Frank suggests Vox Day's $1,800 3-day Sigma grind set course. Days 1, 2, 3, reading alone. I was actually thinking the ultimate scam has got to be this silence meditation thing. I mean, they get people to pay them money to show up to their ranch or whatever. And then they're basically told, go, here's your room, sit down, shut up, don't talk to anyone for 2 weeks. We'll see you when it's over. That'll be $2,500. I mean, that's just got to be. It would be a very rewarding scam for everybody involved if apparently it wasn't driving some of the people going through the meditation, the silent meditation stuff, psychotic. I mean, it was kind of funny because I was just thinking, how on earth? Because of course, when we first think of things, of course, we think of them from our own perspective. So I was immediately thinking, how on earth can anyone go psychotic from just having to shut up for 2 weeks? I mean, I was just thinking, it would be almost, I mean, it's in a beautiful location and that sort of thing. Presumably they let you read books and that sort of thing. And now personally, I don't think it has anything to do with the fact that there was like silent meditation. I'm pretty sure that they were probably being forced to participate in some things that have nothing to do with silence there, and were probably very bad. That would be my guess. But anyhow, that's neither here nor there. I was just amused by Frake's business idea. Rogue Roman says, it amazes me how many people have stories of sigmas. I have never met one. Well, that's true of a lot of people, but the thing is that sigmas are unusual enough that if you've met one, you tend to remember them because they just, strike you as there's just something that's fundamentally different about them from a social perspective, something that's fundamentally wrong. And yet they do tend to be relatively memorable. And so, the key thing is if you want to get along with a sigma, don't try to tell him what to do. Don't try to make him do anything, and don't subject him to your interests. Find one of his interests in which you have some interest, and then use that as a point of connection. One thing that in our extended family that we're very fortunate in is that all of the guys are into football or into soccer, and we had a great time very recently because 3 of us got to play in a game together against a very good team, and it was like one of those experiences that you'll just carry with you because it was so positive. It was fun to be working together, cooperating on something that was in our mutual area of interest. Do Japanese portray them in the novels you read? To a certain extent. I think that what's his name? Seigo Higashino's Detective Galileo is very Sigma-like. I'm not entirely certain, but of the various Japanese novels I've read, he is certainly the most Sigma-like. Murakami does not do Sigmas, which is not a surprise because Murakami's a pretty conventional Gamma. Just trying to think. I just read a fairly unpleasant novel by EA. Definitely not Sigmas there either. But there are 2 characters in the Tale of Genji that I paid particular attention to. Kaoru is almost certainly a Gamma. Genji's an Alpha. He's not a Sigma, he's an Alpha. But he does come off as a little bit Sigma from a Western perspective just because his behavior is so very different from a Western Alpha. When you're bursting into tears over the sound of a flute at sunset, or you pride yourself because your ability to match the correct vegetative addition to the ribbon that you're tying around your gift to a woman you're trying to seduce. That's just not it. Anyhow, there's just but there's really not that many Sigmas out there. There's way fewer than people tend to believe. Is Mr. Darcy a Sigma? I don't know. I don't recall. You got to keep in mind that you have to be careful with literary figures because anyone can write a literary figure with strains from any behavioral pattern, and it doesn't have to make any sense because it's not real. Fiction's not real. A lot of the stuff that we write as fiction novelists is inspired by, and it can be reflective of reality, but it's not reality. And so, that's why, if you've noticed, despite the fact that I'm pretty well suited to talk about literary figures, and I will talk about literary figures, and I have literary figures discussed in the book, I don't tend to utilize them very often. I prefer to kind of look at the historical figures where, for example, some of the historical sigmas I've identified are Arthur Wellesley, the Duke of Wellington, the Charles de Gaulle, Prince. But I mean, I personally, if I look at all of the various people that I've known, there's only 3 that I'm absolutely certain of, and a 4th possibility. And one of those 3 is Prince. As you may know, I met him. I not only met him several times, but he became pretty good friends, and with a girl that I was good friends with. She was never interested in him, which I think is why he was happy. Plus, she's a bit of a night owl, so she was a bit of a confidant of his, and she confirmed a lot of the things that I had observed myself. Rogue Roman says Kurgan for sure. I mean, Kurgan is actually, yeah, that's right. Actually, he should be up there as well, on that list as well. But he's not as firmly in the Sigma categories that the other people I'm thinking of. If you've ever read him, you know why. Sherlock Holmes, no, Sherlock Holmes is not. I mean, Sherlock Holmes as portrayed by Robert Downey Jr., yes. But the historical Sherlock Holmes, no, I don't think so. Akabear has a good point. The secret kings in books, movies are actually kings by the end. Yeah, the whole thing, that whole, quest thing where, Luke Skywalker becomes turns out to be the son of the ruler of the galaxy, and, Magician, the Raymond Feist series, is probably the ultimate example of that. He's just a poor stable boy, and then he becomes practically a demigod. I've never read The Name of the Wind, but from what I've heard, Patrick Rothfuss makes George Martin and Robert Jordan look like super alpha chads by comparison. And I mean, the dead giveaway with the Gamma is always their total inability to describe male-female relations in any manner that is in any way reflective of how they actually exist. And so, Neil Stephenson, that was in Cryptonomicon, that was a dead giveaway. Same with James Hogan in his Giants trilogy. What is Paul Atreides? Paul Atreides is an alpha. I mean, he's an alpha born and raised. He's nobility. He's he's a leader even at a young age. His leadership is never questioned. So, Um, was C.S. Lewis gamma? Uh, I don't know enough to say. Certainly. I mean, the thing is, you got to be a little careful with applying, especially the sexual aspect of an interpretation, applying that to different times, because sometimes the opportunities and stuff just really weren't necessarily there for one reason or another. I mean, a lot of people have different theories about C.S. Lewis. Um, I just don't know. Was Batman a Sigma? No. Batman is how gammas try to portray a Sigma. Jordan Moan has a good point. Paul Atreides was such an alpha that they spent millennia bringing back his bravos. Yeah. You said once that Tolkien may have been a bravo. How can you tell? Um, I think it was. I think it was mostly based on his relationships with his friends with the Inklings. He was always trying to support and build up others. Um, you know, I don't think him. He wasn't an alpha. He Tolkien was either a Bravo or a Delta, but I really think that he was more likely a Bravo. Um, but again, I don't have a firm opinion on that. When I say may have been, I mean, you know, I watched the movie about Tolkien and his wife. Um, Obviously, I've read a lot of his work. You know, um, it's hard to say. Neo from the Matrix, possible Sigma? No, I don't think so. I mean, first of all, he's a gamma fantasy. Julian the Apostate was gamma. He wrote an entire book refuting a guy who mocked his beard. Well, yeah, I mean, even the fact that, I mean, just the fact that his name was Julian the Apostate, yeah, you gotta, just that name alone makes you suspicious. Yeah. Um, Edith was a 9 of 10. Was she really? I don't, I mean, I remember thinking that she was more attractive than you might have assumed for women of that era. Edith Tolkien. Let's see. Take a look. Um, I would say that you have a very generous perspective on it. Um, you know, I think I think for her, I mean, I would probably say more like a 6 myself. Um, but for the time and so forth, she was definitely attractive, and and given the styles, which frankly we find um, very very plain. Um, but she was an attractive woman. There's no question. I saw the photo. I saw the photo of the main photos of Edith. Um, I strongly suspect that you have different standards than I do. Um, is there any alpha left in the European royal families? I don't see how we would know. I have no idea how we would know. You know, Probably. I mean, certainly Prince William seems to be pretty alpha. Prince Charles definitely isn't. Um, Prince Philip was alpha, no question. So, anyhow, but again, who is this? Who is that? It's fine. It's fine to play that game, but it's not relevant. It's totally irrelevant. And it's much more useful in paying attention to the people around you and using it to successfully anticipate their behavior. You know, there's nothing wrong with applying it to having fun and saying, oh, well, I think this might be this and I think that might be that, but it's irrelevant because you don't know them well enough to know. You know, unless and until you can successfully and correctly identify all of the people in your social circle, why would you even imagine trying to do it with regards to people about whom you have very, very limited information? So, anyhow, thanks for tuning in. Again, to repeat, the Castalia history book for April, May, and June is the Cambridge History of Byzantium, Volume 1. I'm Vox Day, and this is the Darkstream.